The call came on a Wednesday afternoon, the kind of bleak, slushy New York day that makes you want to stay in bed. I was cataloging a new shipment of abstract pieces for the gallery, my fingers smudged with charcoal dust. When my personal cell buzzed, the screen flashed. Jasmine Veridian. I stared at it. Jasmine Reed was Marcus's executive assistant. In 3 years of marriage, she'd never called me directly. My husband's rules were simple, absolute. His world at Veridian Dynamics, and my world everywhere else were to remain parallel lines. Never touching. It's for your own safety. Lux, my world is full of sharks. I want you kept pure, away from all that, his words. Always delivered with a kiss on my forehead, a protective gleam in his steel blue eyes, a cold, not tightened in my stomach. I answered, Jasmine, Lux? Oh, thank God. Her voice was a tense, high-pitched whisper, crackling with panic. I'm so sorry to bother you. I wouldn't if it wasn't a 5-alarm fire. Marcus is going to kill me. What's wrong? I asked, setting down the fragile ceramic sculpture I'd been holding. The Merrick acquisition files, the due diligence binders. He had them at the townhouse over the weekend, and he must have left them. He's in a closed door with the board and the SEC lawyers right now, and they're asking for specifics he doesn't have memorized. His next call is with the investment committee at Goldman in 40 minutes. If he doesn't have those numbers, she didn't need to finish. I knew the Merrick deal was the biggest of Marcus's career, a $12 billion play that would cement Veridian's dominance. I'd seen the files, thick blue binders, on his study desk last Sunday. He'd been poring over them, murmuring about synergy and vertical integration. I can messenger them over. I offered, already calculating the time from the Upper East Side to his Wall Street tower. There's no time. The traffic is a nightmare, and the messengers are all delayed because of the weather. Please, Lux, you're the only one who can get here fast enough. I'll have security clear you at the private garage elevator, 68th floor. Please. The desperation in her voice was real. Jasmine was a consummate professional, unflappable. This wasn't an act. The rule echoed in my head. Never come to the office. But this was an emergency. I was his wife. Didn't that mean something? Even in secret, maybe this was a test, a chance to prove I could be part of his real life in a crisis. Okay, I heard myself say, tell security it's Lux Sterling. I used my maiden name, the one on my driver's license, the one the world knew. Bless you. I'll meet you at the elevator bank. The drive downtown was a blur of gray slush and blaring horns. My mind raced. What if I saw someone he knew? What would I say? Just dropping off some papers for Mr. Thorne. Would they believe it? Marcus Thorne, the 38-year-old Wunderkind CEO, a perennial feature on Forbes and Vanity Faircoverse. And me, Lux Sterling, 32, gallery curator, daughter of a now irrelevant old money family from Connecticut. Our worlds weren't just separate. They were galaxies apart by design. His design, the Veridian Tower, was a sleek, black glass monolith piercing the leaden sky. I pulled into the underground garage, my heart thumping a frantic rhythm against my ribs. A uniformed guard was already waiting, holding a tablet. Ms. Sterling, you're cleared. Elevator bank C. It'll take you directly to the executive floor. The elevator was silent, all polished steel and soft lighting. It smelled of sandalwood and money. The ascent was too fast. The doors whispered open onto a cavernous, minimalist lobby. The only sound was the faint, expensive hum of silence. The floor was empty. Then a door at the far end opened, and Jasmine hurried out. She was as impeccable as ever in a tailored sheath dress, but her usually perfect bob was slightly frayed at the temples. Lux, you're a lifesaver. Thank you. Thank you. She took the heavy tote bag containing the binders. He's in his office. The meeting just broke for a 5-minute recess. You should probably give them to him personally. He's on edge. She gave me a tight, Sympathetic smile that didn't reach her eyes, and gestured down a wide corridor lined with what looked like original Rothkos. Last door at the end. The big one. My heels sank into the impossibly thick charcoal carpet, muffling my footsteps. My mouth was dry. This was it, the inner sanctum. I'd imagined it 1,000 times, the temple of power, of the man I loved but only knew in pieces. The door was massive, dark walnut, no nameplate, just a sleek biometric scanner. It was slightly ajar. I took a deep breath, pushed it open, and stepped into my husband's world. The first thing that hit me was the view. A wall of glass presented a dizzying, postcard perfect panorama of Central Park, dusted with snow, the city stretching beyond. The room was vast, dominated by a monolithic desk of fossilized stone. It was terrifyingly neat. The second thing that hit me was the sound. A low, feminine laugh I knew too well, a gasp that wasn't from surprise. They were over by the window, to the left of the desk, silhouetted against the winter light. Marcus, my Marcus, in his custom Tom Ford suit, his back to me, and pressed between him and the cold glass, her arms wrapped around his neck, her blonde hair spilling over his shoulder, was Isabel Vanderbilt, my college roommate, my closest friend, the woman I'd cried to about the stresses of my dating life, never revealing I was secretly married, the one who'd just had lunch with me 2 days ago, complaining about how hard it was to find a worthy man in this city. Files, the very ones I'd just delivered. The blue binders were scattered on the floor at their feet, pages fanning out like a broken fan. They hadn't even made it to the desk. Time didn't just stop, it shattered. The air was sucked from the room. I stood there, a statue, holding an empty tote bag, the chill from the window seeming to seep directly into my bones. Isabel's eyes, a bright, mocking blue, fluttered open over Marcus's shoulder. They met mine. There was no shock, no guilt, just a slow, lazy acknowledgement, like a cat spotting a mouse it couldn't be bothered to chase. A smile touched her perfect, gloss lips. She patted Marcus's back. Honey, we have company. Marcus froze. His shoulders, always so sure and broad, tensed. He pulled back from her, slowly, and turned. I saw the journey on his face. Instant, white-hot irritation that someone had dared interrupt. Then confusion as he processed the intrusion. Then, as his brain caught up with his eyes and registered it was me, a flash of something like panic. Quickly, ruthlessly buried under a glacier of cold. Calculated disdain. He didn't jump apart. He didn't stammer. He simply straightened his suit jacket, his expression smoothing into one of profound annoyance. Isabel leaned back against the window, casually adjusting the strap of her slip dress, not even bothering to look embarrassed. Lux, Marcus said, his voice flat, devoid of the warm, intimate timbre I knew. It was his boardroom voice, the one he used to eviscerate underperforming VPs. You should have knocked. The sheer, audacious banality of it broke the spell. A hysterical sound, half laugh, half sob, choked in my throat. I brought the files. I managed to whisper, my voice foreign to my own ears. I pointed a trembling finger at the mess on the floor. Jasmine called. It was an emergency. Isabel let out another soft laugh, pushing off from the window. She sauntered to there was no other word for IT to Marcus's desk, picking up a cut crystal tumbler of amber liquid. Ah, the little wife, running errands. How domestic. She took a sip, watching me over the rim. Surprise. Honey, the word. His word for me. In her mouth. It was a physical blow. Marcus's eyes never left mine. Isabel, give us a moment. Of course. Darling. She set the glass down, gave me a little finger wave, and walked out, her hips swaying. The door clicked shut softly behind her, the sound final as a coffin lid. Silence, thick and toxic, filled the space she left. It's not what it looks like, he began, but the line was so cliché, so pathetic. that it ignited something in me. Really? My voice gained strength, fueled by a torrent of icy rage. Because it looks like you had your tongue down the throat of my best friend in the office I've never been allowed to set foot in, standing on the files that are supposedly so important to your $12 billion deal. What other fascinating interpretation am I missing? Marcus, were you performing the Heimlich maneuver? He had the decency to look momentarily thrown by my tone. I was never angry. I was understanding Lux. Supportive Lux. Quiet Lux. Lower your voice. He hissed, finally moving from the window. He didn't come toward me, but to his desk, as if needing a barrier. This is a place of business, and you weren't supposed to be here. We had an agreement. An agreement? You mean the one where you hide me away like a shameful secret while you fuck a Vanderbilt for what? Social clout? Better stock performance? Watch your language. His eyes narrowed. This is complicated. Lux, you wouldn't understand. Try me. I crossed my arms, clinging to the posture for stability. I have time. My gallery is closed for inventory, and my husband, it seems, is busy. He sighed, a long-suffering sound, and poured himself 2 fingers of scotch from the decanter on his desk. He didn't offer me one. Isabel and we have an understanding. Her family's connections are vital for Viridian's next phase. The merger with Merrick is just the start. What we have, you and I. He gestured vaguely between us. It's different. It's private. It's real. In its way. In its way. I echoed, the words tasting like ash. 3 years. Marcus. 3 years of lies. Of separate holidays. Of pretending to be just dating when we ran into your colleagues. Was any of it real? Or was I just convenient cover? It was necessary. He snapped, finally showing crack. Do you have any idea the scrutiny I'm under? The tax implications of marriage for someone in my position? The prenup alone with someone from your background would have been a media circus. This was cleaner, safer, for both of us. For you. I corrected, my voice trembling now. It was safer for you. My background. You mean my family's money. What's left of it, which you've always looked down on. Safer so you could do this? I waved a hand at the window, the ghost of their entanglement still hanging in the air. Isabel knows the score. She's from this world. You were a respite from it. Lux, something gentle and uncomplicated. He said it like it was a compliment, but it was the cruelest dismissal imaginable. I was a pet, a quiet, pretty hobby, a respite. I repeated, numbness spreading through me. So our marriage license in the safety deposit box, that's just a legal footnote for your respite? It provided certain structural advantages. He said coldly, all pretense of emotion gone, and it can be dissolved just as cleanly. No one ever needs to know it existed. He opened a desk drawer, pulled out a checkbook bound in black leather, not the one from their joint account at the Poultry, monitored one for household expenses, his personal one. He wrote with swift, efficient strokes, tore the check free, and held it out. This should more than compensate you for your time and any inconvenience. It's a generous settlement. Sign the confidentiality agreement my lawyers will send you, and we can both move on with our lives. You can keep the apartment, the car, a clean break. I looked at the check in his outstretched fingers. The number had so many zeros it seemed to swim before my eyes. It was more money than I'd see in 10 lifetimes of gallery work. Hush money, a price tag on 3 years of my life, on my love, on my dignity. The last fragile thread inside me snapped. I walked forward, my steps steady now on the plush carpet. I stopped in front of his monumental desk. I looked at his face at the handsome, arrogant face I'd loved, the face I'd traced with my fingers in the dark, the face that was now a stranger's mask of impatient contempt. I didn't take the check. Slowly, deliberately, I hooked my thumb under the thin, platinum band of my wedding ring, the one I only wore at home, in the dark, for an audience of no one. I pulled it off. It felt flimsy, insignificant. You told me this was a promise. I said, my voice low and clear, a secret just for us, that it was more real because it was hidden from the world. I held it up, the diamond catching the cold light from the window, scattering pathetic little rainbows on his fossilized stone desk. It was just another lie, the most expensive one you ever told. I let it go. It didn't clatter. It landed on the silent carpet with a soft, final thud, rolling a few inches before coming to rest against the leg of his desk. His jaw tightened. Don't be dramatic. Lux, be smart. Take the money. You'll never want for anything. I finally reached out. My fingers closed not around the check, but just beside it, I took the corner of the thick, creamy paper between my thumb and forefinger, and I ripped it in half. The sound was shockingly loud in the quiet room. I saw a flicker of genuine surprise in his eyes, quickly replaced by anger. I tore it again and again, letting the confetti of my generous settlement flutter down to join my discarded wedding ring on the floor. I don't want your money, Marcus, I said, looking him dead in the eye. I had everything I wanted, or I thought I did. Turns out, I was just living in a very beautiful, very gilded cage you built. I leaned forward, planting my hands on the cold stone of his desk. You spent 3 years teaching me how to be invisible, how to hide, how to compartmentalize, how to keep secrets. You taught me how your world works from the shadows. That was your first mistake. A muscle twitched in his cheek. Is that a threat? It's an observation, I said, straightening up. You shouldn't have underestimated the student, Marcus, or the cage. Even gilded ones have doors. And I just found mine. I turned and walked towards the door. My back was to him, the most vulnerable I could be. But I'd never felt stronger. Lux, he called out, his voice a low, dangerous warning. If you think of doing anything stupid, anything that could harm my reputation or this company. I paused at the door, my hand on the cool metal handle. I didn't look back. The game's different now, I said softly, more to myself than to him. You're not the only one who gets to make the rules. I pulled the door open and stepped out into the silent, Rothko-lined hallway, leaving the shattered pieces of my old life and the stunned silence of the man who broke it behind me. The elevator ride down was silent too, but this time, the hum wasn't of money. It was the quiet, gathering storm of a war he never saw coming. The cold air of the garage hit me like a physical slap, shocking me out of the numb, high-pitched silence in my head. I fumbled with the key fob, my hands shaking so badly I dropped it twice. The sleek, silent Tesla, a gift for our second anniversary, a tool to keep me quiet and comfortable, finally unlocked with a soft chirp. I slid into the driver's seat, the leather freezing through my thin wool pants. For a long moment, I just sat there, hands clenched on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, staring at the concrete wall in front of me, but seeing only the image burned onto my retina. Marcus, Isabel, the scattered files, the look of utter annoyancy in his face. A sound escaped me, a raw, guttural thing that was part sob, part scream of rage, muffled by the soundproof cabin. I beat my fists against the steering wheel until they ached. The tears came then, hot and furious and blinding. I cried for the marriage that never was, for the 3 years of my life handed over to a lie, for the humiliation so complete it felt like my skin had been stripped off. But self-pity, I discovered, has a time limit, especially when it's fueled by white-hot anger. The tears dried up as suddenly as they'd started, leaving my face tight and my eyes burning. I looked at my reflection in the rear-view mirror. Puffy eyes, smudged mascara, the face of a woman who'd been played for a fool. No more. The word echoed in the silent car. No, more. I didn't drive home. The townhouse on East 70th wasn't home. It was a stage set, a beautiful, cold prison decorated by an interior designer Marcus hired. Going back there meant surrounded by moralized the photos of us in Capri, a romantic getaway where he'd taken business calls every night. The books he pretended to read, the kitchen we never cooked in together. I needed sanctuary. I needed truth. And I knew only one person who dealt exclusively in that commodity, no matter how ugly. 40 minutes later, I was across the East River, navigating the quieter, tree-lined streets of Brooklyn Heights. I pulled up in front of a handsome brownstone, its facade worn but dignified. The third-floor apartment belonged to Alex Chin. I pounded on the door, the earlier control giving way to a desperate urgency. After a minute, the door swung open, revealing Alex in faded MIT sweats, holding a massive mug of coffee, his black hair sticking up in all directions. He took one look at me, disheveled, pale, eyes like dark holes, and his sleep-creased face immediately sharpened into alert concern. Lux? Jesus, what happened? Is it your mom? He stepped aside, ushering me in. Worse, I managed to say, my voice hoarse. I walked into the familiar chaos of his living room. It was a monument to organized chaos. White boards covered in complex equations and flowcharts. Multiple computer monitors glowing with lines of code. Books and legal pads stacked on every surface. The air smelled of stale coffee, solder, and ozone, worse than your mother's last financial emergency. He asked, carefully, setting his mug down. Alex knew about my family's dwindled fortune, my mother's constant, grasping need. He'd been my best friend since freshman year at Columbia, the brilliant, fiercely ethical scholarship student to my somewhat adrift art history major. He was the one who'd helped me get the gallery job, who'd talked me down from 100 ledges. He was also the one who'd been quietly, persistently suspicious of Marcus Thorne from day one. I'm married. I blurted out. Alex blinked. Okay, congratulations. I'm sensing the timing on this announcement is not great. For 3 years, to Marcus Thorne, the change in his demeanor was instantaneous. All the soft concern vanished, replaced by a hard, analytical focus. He didn't gasp or shout. He just stared at me, processing. Viridian Dynamics, Marcus Thorne. Yes, the guy you've been casually dating for 3 years. Yes, the guy I told you had the ethical compass of a hungry hammerhead shark. Yes, Alex. I snapped, the frustration boiling over. That guy. And today, I walked into his office because his secretary begged me to deliver some urgent files. And I found him with his tongue down Isabel Vanderbilt's throat. That got a reaction. His eyebrows shot up. Isabel? Your friend Isabel? She's not my friend. The words were bitter. It was a setup. Alex. The marriage. Me. I was a respite. A tax write-off. A fucking beard while he secures his merger with the Vanderbilt dynasty. The story poured out of me in a ragged, chaotic stream. The secret license. The separate lives. The rules. The ripped check. The ring on the floor. Alex listened in utter silence, his expression growing grimmer with each sentence. When I finished, deflated and trembling again, he walked to his kitchenette and came back with a glass of water and 2 fingers of cheap bourbon. He pressed the bourbon into my hand. Drink. I obeyed. The liquor burned a path of warmth down my throat, steadying the internal earthquake slightly. Okay, Alex said, sitting on the edge of his cluttered desk. First, I'm not saying I told you so. He paused. Okay, I am, but only once. I told you so. He's a sociopath with a good tailor. Now, the important question. What did you sign? What? The marriage license. What else? Prenup? Postnup? Any agreements? Any NDAs? I thought, my mind sluggish. Just the license. He said lawyers complicated things. He said it was more pure, just between us. Alex let out a short, incredulous laugh. More pure. Jesus. Okay, that's good. That's actually your first piece of luck. It means you're legally entitled to half of everything acquired during the marriage, which, given it's Marcus Thorne, is probably a decent chunk of change. You could walk away rich. Lux, fuck you, money rich. I shook my head violently. I don't want his money. I ripped up the check he offered. You what? For the first time, Alex looked truly exasperated. Lux, that's not principled. That's stupid. That's the money you used to fight him. I don't want a divorce settlement, I said, my voice dropping to a low, fierce whisper. I want to burn it all down. A slow, grim smile spread across Alex's face. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a mathematician who'd just been presented with a beautifully complex problem. Now you're talking, but you don't burn down a fortress like Marcus Thorne with hurt feelings. You need blueprints. You need to know where the gas lines are. He swiveled in his chair and woke up his primary computer. The screens flickered to life. You said it was a merger with Merrick Industries he was working on. I nodded, sinking onto his battered sofa. Yes, the files were for that. Why? Because Marcus Thorne doesn't get his hands dirty with paperwork. If he took those files home, it means he didn't want anyone at Viridian to see what was in them, not even his Golden Boy analysts. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Merrick, old school manufacturing, lots of defense contracts, struggling with pension liabilities, a prime target for asset stripping. He mumbled to himself, pulling up financial news sites, SEC filing databases. Viridian stock is up 8% on the merger rumor. Standard synergy play. But the numbers. He trailed off, frowning. What? I asked, leaning forward. The projected cost savings he's promising shareholders, they're astronomically high, unrealistically high. He's either a genius, or he's planning to do things that would make an EPA inspector and a labor regulator have simultaneous aneurysms. He looked at me. You lived with him. You heard things. Think. Late-night phone calls. Meetings he didn't put on his calendar. Names he mentioned when he thought you weren't listening. I closed my eyes, trying to push past the haze of betrayal and remember the mundane details. The half-conversations. The closed study doors. The times he'd suddenly cancel dinner. His voice tense. He used to get calls sometimes. Very late. From a number he had saved as K. He'd take them in his study. Voice low. I once heard him say something about shipping containers and special handling. I thought it was logistics. Alex was already typing. K could be a first initial. Last name could be a code. He pulled up a dark, minimalist browser I didn't recognize. Let's see who K might be in Marcus's orbit. What is that? I asked, pointing to the screen. Let's just call it a backdoor search engine, he said evasively. Alex had been fired from the Wall Street Journal for refusing to reveal a source. Rumor was, he now did freelance work for a loose collective of activists and hackers called Truth Keepers, using his skills to unearth corporate and government malfeasance. He never confirmed it, and I never pressed. After a few minutes, he whistled softly. Well, hello. Konstantin Volkov, Russian-born, naturalized citizen, owns a private equity firm that specializes in distressed industrial assets. And look at this. He's a major, but quiet, shareholder in a shipping logistics company that's been cited multiple times for irregularities in customs documentation. Your husband's K, maybe? What would Marcus want with a Russian shipping magnate? I asked, a cold dread pooling in my stomach. To move things you don't want the government to see, Alex said simply, or to get paid in ways you don't want the IRS to see. He turned back to me. You need to go back to the townhouse. I can't face that place. You have to. You're looking for anything. Data sticks, hidden files, a second phone, notes, anything that looks out of place. He's arrogant. He might have kept something, especially if he never saw you as a threat. The thought made me nauseous. Snooping through the home I'd shared with him felt like a new violation. But what was one more violation on top of the mountain he'd built? And, Alex added, his eyes glinting, we need to talk about jewelry. Jewelry? Did he ever give you anything? A necklace? A watch? Something you wore all the time? Something with a battery? The question was so bizarre it cut through my misery. I thought of the stunning diamond tennis bracelet he'd given me for our first anniversary. I never take it off, he'd said, clasping it around my wrist himself. A gentle shackle, a tennis bracelet. Diamonds set in platinum. He said it was designed just for me. Alex's face was grim. It's probably got a GPS and audio monitor embedded in the clasp. Standard practice for controlling paranoid bastards with secrets. He's been listening. Lux. For 3 years. The room tilted. Every private conversation. Every phone call to my mother. Every venting session with Alex. Every silly, loving thing I'd whispered to myself when I was alone, he could have heard it all. The violation was so profound, so total. It left me breathless. I fumbled with the clasp. My hands clumsy with shock. The bracelet fell into my palm. Cold and heavy and hideous, I threw it across the room. It hit a whiteboard with a clatter and slid to the floor. Good, Alex said calmly. Now he knows you know. The game is officially on. He'll be scrambling. He'll either try to love bomb you back into compliance or threaten you into silence. We need to be ready for both. I whispered. You didn't think I'd let you do this alone, did you? He gave me a lopsided, determined smile. I've been waiting for a crack in Marcus Thorne's armor since he donated that blood money to the university and got a building named after him. Consider me your tactical support. But Lux, his expression turned deadly serious. This is not a revenge affair. This is a recon mission. We gather evidence. Hard, irrefutable, criminal evidence. The kind that doesn't just get you a divorce settlement, but gets him a federal indictment. We do this smart, or we don't do it at all. Are you in? I looked at the bracelet glinting malevolently on his floor. I thought of Marcus's cold eyes, the ripped check, Isabel's smug smile. The pain was still there, a raw, open wound, but it was no longer the only thing I felt. Filling the spaces around it was a new, cold, focused purpose. I met Alex's gaze. I'm in. 2 days after the world ended. I walked back into the townhouse. The silence was different now. It wasn't peaceful, it was accusatory. Every object, the minimalist sculpture he'd bought at auction, the sleek Italian sofa we'd never really lounged on, the cold marble countertops, felt like a prop in a play that had closed. My stage directions were over. My phone had been buzzing nonstop. Marcus, first, a series of terse texts. We need to talk. Be reasonable, then. Longer, more manipulative messages. You're throwing away everything we built. What we had was real. Lux, let me explain. Finally, a call, which I sent to voicemail. His voice, stripped of its usual confident warmth, was tight, strained. Lux, this is getting out of hand. Jasmine said you haven't been home. Where are you? We can fix this. Just come home and we'll talk. Don't do something you'll regret. I saved the voicemail. Alex's first lesson. Document everything. Now, standing in the cavernous living room, I wasn't the heartbroken wife. I was a forensic investigator in my own life. Alex's words echoed. Look for what doesn't belong. I started in his study, the inner sanctum I'd rarely entered. It was a monument to male power. Dark wood, leather, the smell of expensive cigars and arrogance. I ignored the obvious, the computer, password protected and likely rigged with alerts. The filing cabinets, probably clean. I looked for the hidden. My fingers ran along the edges of bookshelves, behind framed diplomas from Harvard and Stanford. Nothing. Frustration began to rise. What was I doing? I wasn't a spy. I was a jilted art curator with a broken heart. My eyes landed on the humidor, a ridiculous, anachronistic piece of furniture. Marcus didn't even smoke cigars regularly. It was for show. for when his hedge fund buddies or political connections visited. I walked over, lifted the heavy lid. The rich, sweet smell of tobacco wafted out. Nestled in the cedar-lined compartments were fat, perfect cigars. I started lifting them out, one by one, and there, nestled in a space meant for two, was a single, slim, silver USB drive. My heart hammered against my ribs. I didn't touch it. I pulled out my phone and texted Alex a photo. Found something. Humidor. Do I take it? His reply was instantaneous. No. Photo of exactly where it is. Then put everything back exactly. He'll know. I took several pictures from different angles, my hands trembling. Then, carefully, I replaced the cigars, closed the lid, and stepped back. It was evidence, but taking it would tip our hand. We needed to know what was on it first. I moved to the bedroom, feeling like a ghost. My side of the closet was still full. His was immaculate. I checked suit pockets, old shoeboxes on the top shelf, the back of his nightstand drawer, beneath a stack of silk pocket squares. My fingers brushed against cold metal, a cheap, disposable flip phone, the kind you buy with cash at a convenience store. It was powered off. I didn't need Alex to tell me not to take this, either. I photographed it, noted its exact position, and gently covered it back up. My own jewelry box felt like a crime scene. I avoided looking at the empty spot where my wedding ring used to live. Instead, I found the pair of diamond studs he'd given me for my last birthday. So you'll always have a piece of me close, he'd said. I held one up to the light. In the post where the back would screw on, I saw a tiny, almost invisible dark spot. A lens, a camera. Nausea rolled through me. He hadn't just been listening. He'd been watching. I left the earrings, let him watch an empty room. I was about to leave, feeling both triumphant and violated, when my personal phone rang. Not Marcus this time. The screen flashed. Eleanor Winthrop, a major client, a steel heiress with a passion for provocative modern art and an even greater passion for gossip. I took a steadying breath and answered, Lux, darling, thank God you're alive. I've been trying your gallery all day. Eleanor, hi, I'm taking a few personal days. What can I do for you? I forced my voice into its professional, gallery curator cadence. Well, firstly, you can tell me why you look like you haven't slept in a week. Meredith saw you at the Baccarat bar last night, dear, and said you were drinking alone and looking positively haunted. But that's not why I'm calling. I need a +1 for the Vanguard Foundation Gala tomorrow night. Charles has come down with the most dreadful flu, and I refuse to be saddled with my nephew again. He only talks about cryptocurrency. You'll come, won't you? It's for the dolphins or the trees or something. The crowd will be fabulous. The Vanguard Gala, the social event of the season. Marcus would be there, undoubtedly, and Isabel, and every influential person in the city. My instinct was to curl into a ball and hide. But Alex's voice in my head was firm. You need to get back on the board. Your battlefield isn't a courtroom yet. It's the room he's in. I'd be delighted. Eleanor, I heard myself say the words smooth as glass. Thank you for thinking of me. Marvelous. Black tie. Dreadful. I know. Pick me up at 8. We'll make an entrance. I hung up, my mind already racing. An entrance. I needed a weapon, not just a dress. The Vanguard Museum was a blaze of light and sound. Chandeliers glittered over a sea of black tuxedos and gowns that cost more than most people's cars. I stood beside Eleanor, who was holding court in a dramatic purple cape, feeling like an imposter. My own dress, a simple column of liquid silver, was one I'd owned for years. It felt like armor. I spotted him within 5 minutes. Marcus, at the center of a laughing group, near the bar, looking like he owned the room and the world. Isabel was glued to his side, her hand possessively on his forearm, her laughter a little too loud. She wore crimson, a declaration. Ah, The golden couple, Eleanor murmured, following my gaze. Quite the merger, isn't it? Thorne and Vanderbilt. I give it 18 months before one of them tries to have the other whacked. Your Mr. Thorne is looking tense. Though, rumor is the Merrick deal is hitting some snags. Due diligence woes. Pity. My ears perked up. Snags? Oh, you know how it is. Environmental liabilities popping up where they shouldn't. Minor shareholder lawsuits. The usual noise when someone moves too fast. She waved a dismissive hand, then fixed me with a sharp look. You're well out of that orbit. My dear, he was never your type. Too hungry. Before I could respond, a familiar, smooth voice cut in. Eleanor, you look magnificent. Age is clearly just a number you delight in ignoring. Eleanor cackled. Jasper Kane, still as charming and insincere as ever. I see your latest app is making all the teenagers even more intolerable. Lux, you know Jasper, don't you? Jasper, this is Lux Sterling, the only person in this city with a decent eye for art that isn't just a checkbook. Jasper Kane, the founder of Ether, the social media behemoth that had made him a billionaire by 30. He was the new money to Marcus's old guard with new tricks, and their rivalry was the stuff of tech tabloid legend. He was handsome in a less polished way than Marcus. Sharper angles. A glint of genuine mischief in his green eyes. Hair that looked like he ran his hands through it when he was thinking. He wore his tuxedo like he'd rather be in a hoodie. We haven't had the pleasure, Jasper said, turning the full force of his attention on me. His gaze was assessing, intelligent, missing nothing. Though I've admired your gallery from afar, the Kusama exhibition last fall was transcendent. You sold the big piece to the German, didn't you? Out from under MoMA. He'd done his homework. Herr Schmidt had a more compelling vision for it. I said, shaking his offered hand. His grip was firm, warm, a man who knows what he wants. I admire that. He held my hand a beat too long, his eyes never leaving mine. And how do you know our esteemed host? He nodded subtly towards Marcus's circle. Eleanor, thankfully, was pulled away by an ancient dowager waving a martini glass. Through the art world, I said evenly, Viridian is a patron, a partial truth, the safest kind. Jasper's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. They were like chips of sea glass. A patron, yes. Marcus Thorne is a great many things. A man of subtle taste, however, has never been one of them. His collection is loud, like a bullhorn made of money. He took a sip of champagne. I prefer whispers, nuance, the story behind the art, not just the price tag. A rare quality in a collector. I said, intrigued despite myself. This was flirting, but it was flirting with a purpose. I could feel it. I'm a rare man. Ms. Sterling. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. The noise of the party seemed to recede. I also prefer to see the trap before I step in it. Unlike our friend over there, who seems to be decorating his new trap with Vanderbilt scarlet. The directness was shocking and exhilarating. Is that what it is? A trap? The Merrick deal? Absolutely. He's overleveraged, using funny money from Eastern European friends to shore it up. He watched my face closely. I kept it perfectly neutral. You seem unsurprised. I'm a quick study. Mr. Kane. Jasper. Please. He grinned. And I know you are. Your little performance at Viridian Tower the other day is the talk of certain circles. The invisible wife. Made visible. And furious. Ice shot down my spine. How could he know? Jasmine. Security? Someone had talked. The world I thought was secret was just a poorly kept one. I have no idea what you're talking about. I said, my voice cooling. Of course not. He said easily, not fooled. Let's just say I have a vested interest in the structural integrity of my competitors' personal lives. When a cornerstone gets cracked, the whole facade gets shaky. Creates opportunities. So that was it. I was an opportunity, a crack in Marcus's armor. The realization was oddly calming. This was a language I was starting to understand. Transaction. What kind of opportunities? I asked, matching his casual tone. The kind where the right whisper in the right ear can make a shaky deal collapse entirely. The kind where a person with insider knowledge of a competitor's habits, weaknesses, blind spots could be invaluable to someone looking to make a strategic acquisition. He let the word hang. Acquisition that he didn't just want to beat Marcus. He wanted to eat him. And what would this person with knowledge get out of such an arrangement? I asked, holding his gaze. Satisfaction. For one, he said softly, a front row seat to the downfall of someone who wronged them. And, more tangibly, a seat at a new table, a partnership. My new venture capital arm is looking for a cultural strategist. Someone who understands the art of the deal in more ways than one. The salary is substantial. The equity, life-changing. It was a bribe. A glorious, audacious, perfectly targeted bribe. He wasn't offering me a shoulder to cry on. He was offering me a spear to throw. That's a very interesting proposal. Jasper, I said, plucking a glass of champagne from a passing tray. But I'm afraid I'm not for sale. His smile didn't falter. I'm not buying you. Lux, I'm recruiting you. There's a difference. One is transactional. The other is an alliance. He glanced over at Marcus, who was now watching us, his expression dark. Think about it. Enemies are a burden. Allies are a force multiplier. And you, I suspect, are ready to be a force. He reached into his pocket and produced a simple, matte black business card. It had only a phone number engraved on it. My direct line. When you're done thinking, call me. We'll have a real conversation about art and other forms of warfare. He took my free hand, not to shake it, but to smoothly tuck the card into my palm, folding my fingers over it. His touch was electric, deliberate. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Ms. Sterling, I have a feeling it's just the beginning of a much more interesting one. He melted back into the crowd, leaving me standing there, the card burning a hole in my hand. I looked up and met Marcus's eyes across the room. The easy charm was gone. In its place was a cold, focused fury I knew all too well. It was the look he got right before he dismantled a business rival. Isabel followed his gaze, saw me, and her smile turned venomous. She whispered something in his ear. He shook his head once, sharply, never taking his eyes off me. Eleanor reappeared at my elbow. Well, Jasper Kane. Ambitious boy. Dangerous, too. Did he just try to poach you? Something like that. I murmured, slipping the card into my clutch. Be careful, darling. He doesn't pick up broken things to fix them. He uses them as levers to pry open something he wants. She patted my arm. Now, come. I see the French ambassador, and he owes me a favor involving a questionable Matisse. I followed her, my mind racing. A lever. It was better than being an ornament or a victim. My phone vibrated in my clutch. A text from Alex. Got a mirror on the USB. It's a treasure trove. Shell companies. Invoices to AK for logistical services. Get home. We have work to do. I looked back one more time. Marcus was still staring. I gave him a small, cool smile at the one I used to placate difficult artists and turned away. The game was indeed on, and I was no longer just a piece on the board. I was learning how to play. The silence in Alex's apartment was a physical thing, thick with the hum of computer fans and the weight of what we were seeing. On the largest monitor, lines of financial data scrolled past, a dizzying river of numbers, shell company names, and wire transfer codes. The mirrored contents of Marcus's USB drive were a roadmap to a shadow empire. This isn't just aggressive accounting. Lux, Alex said, his voice low and tense. He pointed to a series of transactions, highlighted in red. These are payments from a numbered company in the Caymans to a subsidiary called Viridian Logistics Solutions. Mignon, but Viridian doesn't have a logistics subsidiary. Where's the money going? I asked, leaning closer, the glow of the screen bleaching the color from my face. That's the fun part. It gets split, rerouted through Estonia, then Cyprus, then ends up in a corporate account in Delaware registered to K. Volkov Holdings. Your husband is funneling Viridian money, shareholder money, into Konstantin Volkov's pocket. For what? He clicked open another file. It was a scanned invoice, crude and blurry. The description read, Specialized Transport Customs Clearance, Eastern European Corridor. Hazardous Materials Surcharge. The amount was 8 figures. Hazardous Materials. I whispered, the phrase hanging in the air like a poison cloud. Weapons components, banned chemicals, or people? Alex said grimly, but that's not even the main act. Look at this. He pulled up a complex organizational chart. At the top was Viridian Dynamics. Lines spiderwebbed out to dozens of tiny, indistinguishable LLCs. He's been creating a Russian nesting doll of companies. He uses them to bid on his own contracts, inflating Viridian's perceived value. He's bleeding the real company dry to feed the fake ones, and using Volkov's dirty money to cover the gaps. The Merrick acquisition? It's not a growth strategy. It's a Hail Mary. He needs Merrick's cash reserves and physical assets as a life raft before this whole house of cards collapses. The scale of it was monstrous. It wasn't just about humiliating me. It was fraud on a galactic scale. We have to take this to the SEC, the FBI, and say what? Alex swiveled in his chair to face me. That the secret wife of Marcus Thorne, who has no legal access to his files, just happened to find a USB drive in his cigar box, a drive we obtained by what a defense attorney will call theft. A drive that could have been planted by anyone. The chain of custody is a joke. He'll say it's a fabrication, a vengeful ex-lover's fantasy. And with his resources, he'll make it stick. We need something airtight, something that can't be explained away. The elation of discovery curdled into frustration. So what do? Sit on it. We use it as a guidebook, Alex said, his eyes gleaming with a hunter's focus. Now we know what to look for. We follow the money. We find a whistleblower inside one of these shell companies. We get a recording, a confession, something that stands on its own. He paused. Or, you use it the way Kane suggested, as a lever. Jasper's black card felt like it was burning a hole in my wallet. He wants me to help him take over Viridian. He wants to use you to gut it. Alex corrected. It's different. If Kane gets control, he'll fire sale the pieces. Thousands of people will lose their jobs. The fraud might get buried in the bankruptcy proceedings. Thorne might still walk away, just poorer. Is that enough for you, Lux? Making him poorer? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I almost sent it to voicemail, but something made me answer. Lux? It's Jasmine, from Viridian. Her voice was a strained whisper, shot through with static. I need to see you. Please. It's about Marcus and the Vanderbilt woman. We met in a grimy diner in the financial district, the kind of place where the coffee was bitter and the vinyl booths were cracked. Jasmine looked like a different person. The impeccable, poised executive assistant was gone, replaced by a woman with shadows under her eyes, her hands trembling as she clutched a mug. He knows I called you that day, she said without preamble. He didn't say it, but he knows. He's been cold, reassigning my projects. Yesterday, he had HR suggest I might be happier exploring opportunities outside the company, with a non-disclosure payout that's a fraction of what I'm owed. I'm so sorry, Jasmine, I said, meaning it. She was collateral damage in my war. Don't be. I should have left years ago. The man is a monster. You just finally saw his face. She took a shaky breath. I'm not just here to cry on your shoulder. I'm here to trade. Information for protection. What kind of information? She leaned forward, her voice dropping. The Vanderbilt merger. It's not just business. Isabel's father, Charles Vanderbilt, is up to his neck in some shady municipal bond deals in 3 states. Marcus has the evidence. He's using it to force the merger. It's not an alliance. It's a hostile takeover of the Vanderbilt empire, with Isabel as the pretty, complicit trophy. She thinks she's playing him, but he's 10 steps ahead. My mind reeled. Does Isabel know? Does she care? Jasmine snorted. As long as the checks clear and she gets to be Mrs. Thorne? Doubt it. But that's not the good part. She pulled a small, encrypted thumb drive from her purse and slid it across the sticky table. This is the good part. It's a backup of his travel calendar and expense reports for the last 5 years. The official one, and the one he keeps on a private server. The discrepancies are interesting, like the 3 trips to Zurich that never appeared on his official schedule, or the $500,000 in client entertainment, billed to a subsidiary that was dissolved the following week. I stared at the little drive. Why are you giving this to me? Because you're the only one with a reason to burn it all down, she said simply, and because I need a job when this is over. I hear Jasper Kane is hiring. Put in a good word for me. She stood up, leaving a 20 under her coffee cup. He's going to the Hamptons this weekend. The Vanderbilt estate. Big engagement party. He thinks you're broken. Lux, he thinks you're hiding. Show him you're not. The Vanderbilt cottage in Southampton was a sprawling, shingled monster overlooking the Atlantic. The informal engagement party looked like a movie premiere. I arrived with Eleanor, who was thrilled by the drama of it all. A front row seat to the collapse of high society. Darling, this is better than theater. I felt eyes on me the moment I walked in. The whispers were a palpable rustle. That's her, the one from the gallery, the one Thorne was seeing before Isabel. Did you hear she had a meltdown at his office? I ignored them, my eyes scanning the crowd. I saw Marcus first, holding court by the fireplace, the picture of arrogant success. Then I saw Isabel. She was radiant in ice blue silk, the massive diamond on her left hand catching the light like a weapon. She saw me, and a slow, cruel smile spread across her face. She excused herself from a group and floated towards me, a shark in couture. Lux, what a surprise. Her voice was syrup. I didn't think this was your scene. A little too old money for your eclectic tastes. Isabel, I said, my voice calm. Congratulations. I hear force mergers are all the rage this season. Her smile tightened. Still bitter. I see. It's so unattractive. Marcus and I are a partnership, a meeting of equals, something you could never understand. A partnership where he blackmails your father? Yes, that sounds very equal. All the color drained from her face. The mask slipped for just a second, revealing pure, unadulterated fear. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. What did you say? I think you heard me. I gently but firmly removed her hand. You're not the puppeteer. Isabel, you're the prettiest puppet on the string. He'll use you, and your family's name, until there's nothing left. Then he'll find a newer, shinier toy. Her composure shattered. The smug socialite vanished, replaced by a terrified, cornered woman. You don't know anything. She hissed, but the bravado was gone. I know you're pregnant. She flinched as if struck. How? It doesn't matter. Does he know? She looked over at Marcus, laughing with the senator, and a world of weary resignation settled on her features. He thinks it's his. The due date, it's close enough. My friend is a musician. He has no money. Marcus can provide. She trailed off, the enormity of her gilded cage finally dawning on her. He'll own that child, Isabel, and he'll own you forever because of it. Tears welled in her eyes, smudging her perfect eyeliner. What do you want from me? The truth, all of it, and a way to prove it. She looked at me for a long moment. A silence were raging behind her eyes. Self-preservation against a lifetime of gilded servitude. Slowly, she reached into the tiny beaded clutch hanging from her wrist. Her fingers closed around something small and metallic. She took my hand, as if in a friendly gesture, and pressed the object into my palm. It was a USB drive, sleek and black. He gave it to me. She whispered, her voice barely audible over the party's din. A token of his trust. The password to the encrypted folder is my birthday. He's so arrogant. It's a backup of his most sensitive files, the ones he doesn't even keep at the office. I think he wanted me to feel included, like I was part of his real life. A bitter, choked laugh escaped her. It's all on there. Things that would send him to prison for 100 years. Take it. Just make sure he can never use my child against me. She turned and walked away, quickly blending back into the crowd, leaving me standing there with the cold, tiny drive in my sweating hand and the taste of impending victory, sharp and coppery, on my tongue. Back in Alex's war room, the new drive proved to be the Rosetta Stone, while Jasmine's data gave us the what. Isabel's drive gave us the how and the who. It contained not just financial records, but communications, emails, transcripts, and audio files. Alex played one. The sound quality was crystal clear. Marcus's voice. The oversight committee is getting nosy. The environmental report on the Albany plant needs to disappear. Another voice, gruff, uneducated. It's handled, Mr. Thorne. The fire was convincing. The 2 night watchmen. They didn't make it out. It'll be ruled an accident. Faulty wiring. Marcus. Good. See that the families are compensated. Quietly. Through the usual channels. Other voice. Of course. Mr. Volkov sends his regards. I felt the blood drain from my face. He had people killed. 2 people, Alex said, his face ashen, to cover up toxic dumping. It's not just fraud, Lux. It's murder. The moral high ground vanished, replaced by a yawning, dark chasm. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. And it was terrifying. My phone rang. Jasper Kane. Lux, I hear you've been busy, making quite the impression in the Hamptons. His voice was light, amused. What do you want, Jasper? To offer you a seat at the table. I've been reviewing the public data on Viridian. The cracks are showing. The stock is vulnerable. I'm preparing a tender offer, a hostile one, with the right leverage. The board will have no choice but to accept. I want you to be that leverage. You want me to help you steal his company. I want you to help me save it from a criminal who's about to run it into the ground, taking thousands of pensions with it. My way. The company survives. The employees keep their jobs. The bad actor goes to jail. Your way, you go to the feds. It's a circus. The company gets bled dry by lawyers and fines before it even gets to trial. Everyone loses, except the lawyers. He was good. He framed it as the noble, pragmatic choice. And what do I get in this noble enterprise? A seat on the board of the new, clean Viridian Ether conglomerate. A signing bonus that will make the check Thorne offered you look like pocket change. And the satisfaction of knowing you didn't just break him. You built something better from the pieces. Think about it. Lux, do you want to be the woman who testified or the woman who triumphed? He hung up. The choice was laid bare before me. The righteous, dangerous path of the whistleblower or the ruthless, powerful path of the corporate raider. Hand in hand with a man who might be just another version of Marcus. I looked at Alex, then at the audio waveform frozen on the screen. A visual representation of a man ordering 2 deaths. We can't sit on this, I said, my voice hollow. I know, Alex replied, but if we go public with this now, with Kane making his move, it gets messy. Thorne will claim it's a corporate sabotage setup. Kane might get spooked and back off. The evidence could get lost in the noise. So what do we do? The weight of it was crushing me. Alex leaned back, steepling his fingers. We do both. We give Kane just enough, the financial fraud. The shell companies T.O. make his takeover bid irresistible. He weakens Thorne. drives down the stock, creates chaos. In that chaos, Thorn will get desperate. He'll make a mistake. He'll reach out to Volkov. And when he does, Alex tapped the audio file. We record him. We get the confession that ties it all together. Then, we take everything to the FBI. Kane gets his company. Thorn gets a cell. And we make sure the whole ugly truth comes out. It was a tightrope walk over a pit of vipers. One misstep, and we'd be consumed. I picked up Jasper's black business card, running my thumb over the engraved numbers. Then I looked at the frozen audio on the screen, the ghostly representation of two dead men. Justice or victory? I whispered to myself, echoing Jasper's question. I picked up my phone. I had calls to make, to a man who offered a crown, and to a ghost in the machine who could help me build a trap. The path was set. There was no turning back now. My finger hovered over the call button on my phone. Jasper Kane's number displayed like a live wire. The two paths dot Jasper's promise of ruthless victory and the cold, hard road of justice through the evidence in Alex's computer seemed to pull at me from opposite directions. In the end, I didn't call Jasper. I texted him. 3 words. I'm in. Details? His reply was immediate. My place. Tonight. 8 p.m. Discretion advised. AN address in Tribeca followed. It was a command, not an invitation. The power dynamic was already established, and I was the supplicant. I hated it, but I needed his chaos. You're sure about this? Alex asked, watching me from behind his screens. The audio file of Marcus ordering the Albany cover-up was still frozen on the monitor. A silent scream. No, I admitted, slipping my phone into my pocket. But he's right about one thing. If we drop this on the FBI's desk now, with no other pressure, Marcus will bury it in legal teams and counter-narratives. He'll paint me as a scorned, unstable liar. Jasper, takeover bid, creates a crisis. It forces Marcus to move, to get sloppy. We need him to be desperate. Jasper makes him desperate. And what do you get from Jasper, aside from a front row seat? Alex's tone was skeptical. A seat at the table, I said, repeating Jasper's words. A platform, money that isn't tainted, and leverage. When this is all over, and Marcus is gone, I'll be inside Jasper's new empire. I can make sure the Albany families get more than quiet compensation. I can make sure the other accidents get investigated. From the inside, I can do more good than from the outside with a protest sign and a subpoena. It was a rationalization, and we both knew it. I also wanted to win. I wanted to see the look on Marcus's face when he lost everything, and I wanted to be holding the keys. Justice was cold comfort. I wanted fire. Alex studied me for a long moment, then sighed. Just remember, Kane isn't a white knight. He's a different kind of shark. He'll expect payment. I know, I said, and I'll pay, but on my terms. Jasper's place was a penthouse loft that looked more like a tech company's headquarters than a home. Expansive, raw space, concrete floors, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing a dizzying view of the downtown skyline. The only furniture was a sleek, low-slung sofa, a single brutalist chair, and a desk that was a slab of floating carbon fiber. It was a stage, carefully set to intimidate. He stood by the window, silhouetted against the city lights, holding 2 glasses of something amber. He didn't turn as the private elevator opened. Right on time. I appreciate punctuality. It suggests respect for the value of other people's time, which is the only real currency. Or it suggests anxiety. I said, walking in, my heels clicking on the concrete. I refused to be cowed by the starkness. He turned, a slow smile playing on his lips. He was dressed down, dark jeans and a gray Henley, but he looked no less powerful. Touché. Drink? No, thank you. Suit yourself. He set 1 glass down on the desk, unperturbed. So, you've decided to join the revolution. I've decided our interests are temporarily aligned. I corrected. I have information that will make a hostile takeover of Viridian not just possible, but inevitable. I want something in return. Name it. He leaned against the desk, all casual attention. A seat on the board of the new entity, a formal title, head of corporate strategy and ethics, full voting rights, and a compensation package that reflects the value of the intelligence I'm providing. He let out a low chuckle. Head of ethics. I like that. The beautiful, wronged wife becomes the conscience of the new machine. The press will eat it up. Done. The package will be drawn up by my lawyers. You'll find it more than fair. He took a sip. Now, the information. I didn't have the physical drives. I had memorized the key points. Marcus is using a network of shell companies to artificially inflate Viridian's value and hide catastrophic liabilities. The Merrick acquisition isn't a growth strategy, it's a life raft. He's using it to access their cash reserves to cover debts that are about to be called in. The primary creditor is a holding company linked to Konstantin Volkov. Jasper's playful demeanor vanished. His eyes sharpened. All business. Volkov, the shipping guy. That's not just fraud. That's a national security footnote waiting to happen. How leveraged is he? If Volkov calls in his markers, or if the Merrick deal falls through, Viridian stock will drop 40% in a day, maybe more. The board doesn't know the half of it. Marcus has them all on a need-to-know basis, and he's decided they don't need to know. A genuine, predatory grin spread across his face. That's not just a crack. Lux, that's the Grand Canyon. He pushed off the desk and walked to a large, blank screen on the wall. With a voice command, it lit up, displaying complex financial models and stock charts. My team has been modeling a tender offer for months. We were waiting for a moment of weakness. You've just given us the blueprint to induce a cardiac arrest. He pointed to a line on a graph. We start with a whisper campaign. Leak the shell company rumors to the journal. Not enough to sue over, just enough to plant doubt. Then, we hit them with the tender offer point 20% above the current trading price, which is already inflated. The board, panicking about the rumors and seeing a cash exit, will be pressured to accept. Marcus will fight. Of course. He'll try to find a white knight. He'll try to get Volkov to bail him out. That's when we move. I said, following his logic. When he's desperate, when he reaches out to Volkov for a lifeline, we need to be listening. Jasper looked at me, a new respect in his eyes. You've given this some thought. I've had a good teacher in what not to do. I met his gaze. I have a source who can get me access to a number he uses for Volkov, a burner phone. If we can get a recording of that conversation, it's over. A federal case. Jasper murmured, his mind racing through the implications. That's the endgame. Then, not just a takeover, a demolition. My lawyers won't like the proximity to a criminal investigation. Your lawyers work for you. Do you want to own a company? Or do you want to own a carcass picked clean by the vultures after the feds are done? We do it this way. You get the assets without the liabilities. You get to be the hero who cleaned up the mess. He was silent for a long moment, studying the charts. Then me. You're playing a dangerous game. Lux, you're using me to bait a trap for your husband. And you're using me for insider information to execute a multi-billion-dollar corporate raid. I fired back. We're using each other. It's more honest that way. He laughed, a real, full-throated sound that echoed in the sparse space. God, I was right about you. You're a natural. He raised his glass in a mock toast to a mutually beneficial, temporary, and entirely transactional alliance. I didn't smile. Just get me the board seat. And the wiretap. The storm broke a week later. The Wall Street Journal's headline was a masterclass in understated devastation. Viridian Dynamics' growth strategy reliant on complex web of subsidiaries. Analysts raise questions. The article, citing sources close to the matter, didn't accuse. It merely questioned. It was enough. Viridian's stock, which had been buoyant on the Merrick rumors, stuttered. Then began a slow, sickening slide. The next day, Ether Ventures, Jasper Kane's investment arm, issued a press release. It was a model of corporate aggression disguised as friendly concern. In light of recent questions about Viridian dynamics, financial health, and strategic direction, Ether Ventures is making an unsolicited tender offer to acquire a controlling interest. We believe in the underlying value of Viridian's assets and its employees, and are committed to providing the stability and transparent leadership the company requires. It was a declaration of war, wrapped in a teddy bear. My phone exploded. Marcus. Dozens of calls. Texts escalating from fury to pleading to outright threats. I blocked his number. Emails from his lawyers arrived. Stiffly worded missives accusing me of breach of confidentiality and tortious interference. I forwarded them to my new lawyer, paid for by an advance from Jasper. The real action was in the boardroom. Jasmine, my inside source, now secretly on Jasper's peril, fed me updates. Marcus was frantic, trying to rally the board, but the doubt had been seated. The older members, the ones who cared about legacy and stability, were nervous. The hedge fund sharks on the board saw a quick profit in Jasper's offer. The room was fracturing. Then, the call came, not to me, to the disposable phone Alex and I had been monitoring. The clone of the one I'd found in Marcus's drawer. He'd taken the bait. Alex gave me the signal from his station across my new, anonymous apartment. He had the trace running, the recorder live. I put on my headphones, my heart a frantic drum in my chest. The voice that came through was Marcus's, but stripped of all its polished confidence. It was ragged, edged with panic. Constantine, we have a problem. A low, gravelly voice with a faint Russian accent replied. Problems are for children. Marcus, you have a situation. One I warned you about. You became visible. It's that bitch wife of mine. Marcus snarled. She's working with Kane. She's feeding him information. Your marital problems are not my concern. My concern is the $127 million you owe me. The payment was due yesterday. I can't access the liquidity right now. Kane's bid has frozen everything. The board is in chaos. I need an extension. A week. Just a week to push this through. A week. Volkov mused, the sound of ice clinking in a glass audible in the background. A week is a long time. Markets move. People talk. The merchandise from the Albany facility. It is still in transit. It requires final payment upon delivery. My associates are not patient men. I'll get you your money. Marcus's voice was almost a shout, then dropped to a desperate whisper. There's another way. The Merrick deal. Once it closes, the cash infusion is enormous. I can pay you double, but I need you to lean on a few of the Merrick board members. Remind them of the alternative outcomes if the deal falls through. There it was. Solicitation for coercion. Maybe worse. Volkov was silent for a long moment. This is the last time. Marcus, you are becoming a liability. I do not like liabilities. You have 1 week, not a day more, and you will handle your bitch wife permanently. She is a loose end. Loose ends have a way of unraveling everything. Do you understand? The line went dead. I ripped the headphones off, my hands trembling. It wasn't just fraud. It wasn't just murder. It was a contract on my life. Alex's face was grim on the video call. We got it. That's conspiracy to commit murder for hire, on top of everything else. It's enough. Lux, more than enough. We go to the feds. Now, I thought of Marcus's voice, the cold threat in Volkov's tone. I thought of the 2 dead men in Albany. I thought of Jasper, waiting to pick the bones clean. I had what I needed to destroy Marcus, but Volkov was still out there, and Jasper was still waiting for his prize. Make the copies, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. 1 for us, 1 for the FBI, and 1 for a trusted reporter, as insurance. And Kane? Alex asked. We proceed. The board meeting is tomorrow. Let's give Marcus one last push. The emergency board meeting of Viridian Dynamics was held in the 68th floor conference room, the same floor where my world had shattered. I wasn't there as a wife or a victim. I was there as a newly appointed, if controversial, consultant for Ether Ventures, part of their transition team. Jasper's doing a final, exquisite twist of the knife. I walked in behind Jasper and his lawyers. Marcus, at the head of the table, looked like he hadn't slept in a week. His expensive suit hung loosely on him. His eyes were bloodshot pits. When he saw me, a jolt of pure, undiluted hatred went through him. It was the most genuine emotion I'd ever seen on his face. This is an outrage. He spat, ignoring Jasper and addressing the room. This woman has no standing here. She is a former employee with a personal vendetta, engaged in corporate espionage with our competitor. Ms. Sterling is here as part of Ether's good faith transition team. Jasper said, smoothly, taking a seat without being invited. And I believe the personal matter is irrelevant to the issue at hand. The fact that this board is about to vote on the future of this company, a future you have dangerously mismanaged. The meeting descended into a hellscape of accusations, charts, and raised voices. Marcus fought like a cornered animal. But the numbers, the leaked reports, the shadow of Volkov's debt were all against him. One by one, the board members, their faces pale, voted to enter into exclusive negotiations with Ether. It was a coup. When the final I was counted, Marcus stood up. The fury was gone, replaced by a chilling, hollow calm. He looked at me, then at Jasper. You think you've won, he said, his voice quiet, deadly. You have no idea what you've just taken on. The rot goes deeper than you know. His eyes locked on mine. You should have taken the money. Lux, it would have been cleaner. He turned and walked out, a king leaving his conquered throne room. Jasper leaned over, a triumphant gleam in his eye. Congratulations, head of corporate strategy and ethics. The kingdom is ours. I felt no triumph, only a cold dread. Marcus wasn't the type to slink away. He was the type to burn the castle down with everyone inside. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. Check the news. A board member across the table gasped, looking at his phone. Then another. Murmurs rippled through the room. Jasper frowned, pulling out his own device. His face went slack. I pulled out my phone. A news alert blared. Breaking. Federal agents raid Viridian Dynamics HQ. CEO Marcus Thorne's residence. Sources indicate investigation into fraud, money laundering. Below the headline was a live video feed. Agents in windbreakers emblazoned with FBI were escorting a handcuffed, shell-shocked Marcus Thorne from the Viridian Tower lobby. He was putting his suit jacket over his head, but not before the cameras caught the utter devastation on his face. I looked at Jasper. His moment of victory had been stolen. Upstaged by a federal spectacle, the company he'd just won was now a radioactive crime scene. My phone buzzed again. Alex, it's done. The package was delivered. They moved faster than I thought. Another buzz, a different unknown number. This one contained no text, just a grainy, dark image. It took me a moment to understand what I was seeing. It was a photo, taken from a distance with a long lens. It showed me, from behind, entering Jasper's Tribeca building a week ago. The time and date were stamped in the corner. The message was clear. I'm not the only one being watched. I looked up from the phone. Jasper was staring at me, the celebratory gleam in his eyes replaced by a hard, calculating scrutiny. The reporters, now swarming the building, would connect the dots. The disgruntled wife, the rival CEO, the perfectly timed raid. It was too neat, too convenient. The victory was complete. Marcus was finished. But as I met Jasper's suspicious gaze, I realized the game wasn't over. It had just changed players. And the new player across the table had just realized I might be a more dangerous opponent than the one now sitting in the back of a federal car. The silence in the boardroom was thicker and more volatile than before. The air left the room the moment the news alert flashed. Every board member stared at their screens, then at me, then at Jasper, their faces a mixture of horror, fascination, and dawning comprehension. I had just walked in as the avenging ex-wife, and now my husband was in handcuffs. The optics were a nuclear bomb. Jasper recovered first. He stood, the polished CEO facade slamming back into place. Ladies and gentlemen, clearly, external events have accelerated beyond our agenda today. I suggest we adjourn and reconvene once the dust has settled. Ether remains committed to a stable transition for Viridian. His voice was calm, but his eyes, when they flicked to me, were chips of glacial ice. The board filed out in a shell-shocked silence, murmuring into their phones. Jasmine gave me a tiny, almost imperceptible nod from the doorway before disappearing. I was left alone in the cavernous room with Jasper and his lead attorney, a severe woman named Arden with a razor-cut bob and eyes that missed nothing. Jasper waited until the door clicked shut. Then, the mask dropped. What the fuck was that? Lux? His voice was a low, dangerous hiss. He advanced toward me, not with physical threat, but with the oppressive force of his presence. A federal raid? During a board vote? Do you have any idea how this looks? It looks like a setup. It looks like I used you to orchestrate a takedown for a takeover. That is a textbook case of securities fraud and market manipulation. I didn't know they would move today, I said, which was true. I had expected days, maybe weeks. Alex's insurance package, to the reporter, had clearly acted like rocket fuel. I don't care what you knew. He slammed a hand on the conference table, making the water glasses jump. Arden flinched. You've turned a clean, aggressive business move into a three-ring circus, with the FBI as the headline act. The SEC will be all over this. My tender offer is now toxic. The stock will be halted. This deal is dead. Then it's a good thing you haven't spent a cent yet. I shot back, my own temper rising to meet his. You got what you wanted. Marcus is finished. The company is in play. You can still get it for pennies on the dollar in the bankruptcy auction, without any of his baggage. And what about my baggage? He pulled out his phone, swiped, and thrust the screen toward me. It was the same grainy photo I'd received. Me, entering his building. This was sent to me by an anonymous source 10 minutes ago, along with a note suggesting our strategic partnership might be the real reason for Thorne's sudden legal troubles. This isn't a coincidence. Someone is connecting dots, and they're connecting them to me. The chill that had started in my stomach spread. Volkov. It had to be. Marcus's last ally, covering his tracks and warning off the new player. Or perhaps it was someone else from Marcus's circle, a panicked accomplice. So someone is watching us, I said, forcing a calm I didn't feel. That changes nothing about our agreement. You get the company. I get my seat. My title. Jasper let out a short, humorless laugh. He glanced at Arden, who gave a slight, almost imperceptible shake of her head. The agreement, he said, his voice dripping with false regret, was predicated on a certain set of circumstances. Those circumstances have materially changed. The reputational risk of associating with you at this juncture is untenable. The offer of a board seat is, unfortunately, withdrawn. There it was. The betrayal. Clean, quick, and mercenary. He'd used the information I provided to get to this moment. And now that the moment was too hot, he was cutting me loose. I was a liability. I didn't get angry. I'd been prepared for this. Alex and I had run this scenario. Withdrawn. I repeated, my voice flat. I see. So the alliance is over. The transaction is complete. You have the intelligence. And I have your gratitude? Don't be naive, Jasper said, a flicker of his earlier charm returning, now twisted into something condescending. You'll be well compensated for your consultancy, a generous one-time fee. But a formal position? Out of the question. The media would eviscerate us. It's business. Lux, you understand business now, don't you? I looked at him, this man who had seemed like a liberator, a partner in vengeance. He was just another version of Marcus, with better branding, more agile, perhaps less needlessly cruel, but just as capable of discarding people when they cease to be useful. I do understand business, I said quietly. I reached into my portfolio, not for a pen, but for my own phone. I pulled up a file and set the phone on the table between us. I understand due diligence. I understand leverage. On the screen was a document, a financial disclosure form from Jasper's first company, Ether's precursor, one that had been mysteriously omitted from all subsequent IPO filings. It showed a seed investment from a venture fund that was later revealed to be a front for a Russian oligarch, that a different one from Volkov, but from the same toxic ecosystem. It wasn't illegal, but it was the kind of connection that, highlighted in the current climate, would spark 100 troubling headlines. Jasper's face went perfectly still. Arden leaned forward, her sharp eyes scanning the document. "Where did you get that?" she demanded. "From a friend who's good with databases." I said, "I understand it was buried in a server migration. Accidental, I'm sure. Just like the logs showing your company's early data harvesting practices that might not have been fully compliant with your public privacy pledges, or the internal emails about suppressing a safety audit on your new data center location to avoid costly environmental impact studies." I looked back at Jasper. "You taught me to look for the gas lines." "Jasper, I had just started looking for yours." The room was silent. The power dynamic, which had tilted so decisively in his favor moments ago, quivered on a knife's edge. "This is blackmail," he whispered, the word taut with fury. "No," I corrected him softly. "This is insurance. You just tried to alter the terms of our deal. I'm showing you the cost of doing that. The board seat stands. The title stands. The compensation package we agreed to stands. And you will publicly endorse the creation of the Viridian Survivor Transparency Fund, which I will chair, using a significant portion of the settlement I will receive from the ruins of Marcus's estate to compensate the families of the Albany victims and investigate other accidents in Viridian's past. You will do this not because you're a good person, but because it will be excellent PR for your new, ethical conglomerate, and because the alternative is me releasing these files to the same reporter who just broke the Thorn story." Arden opened her mouth, but Jasper held up a hand. He was staring at me, and for the first time, there was no calculation, no mockery, no predatory gleam. There was simple, stark recognition. He saw an equal, a threat, a partner he could not bully or discard. A long, tense minute stretched out, measured only by the distant sirens from the street below. Finally, a strange, reluctant smile touched his lips. It didn't reach his eyes. "Head of corporate strategy and ethics," he said, the title sounding like a concession and a challenge. "It seems the job description just got more comprehensive." "I'm a quick study," I replied, holding his gaze. "The paperwork, Arden, by end of day, and a press release outlining the new fund, and my role, by tomorrow morning. Jasper will give a statement of full support." I didn't wait for an answer. I picked up my phone, slid it back into my bag, and walked out of the room. My legs felt like water, but my spine was steel. I had just stared down a billionaire in his moment of triumph and taken my piece of the kingdom, not as a gift, as a prize. The following months were a whirlwind of lawyers, cameras, and quiet, deliberate work. Marcus, denied bail as a flight risk, sat in a detention center. His world shrank to a cell and a parade of grim-faced attorneys. The case, fueled by the mountain of evidence, was a slam dunk. He pled guilty to a staggering array of charges: fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, in a desperate deal to avoid a trial that would have detailed the murders. He was sentenced to 25 years in a federal prison, his fortune seized, his name a synonym for corporate evil. Isabel Vanderbilt, freed from her gilded cage, gave a tearful press conference. She spoke of manipulation, fear for her unborn child, and her relief that the truth was out. The charges against her father were severe, but his cooperation and Isabel's testimony led to a complex settlement. The Vanderbilt name was tarnished, but not destroyed. She moved to the West Coast, had her baby, and sent me a simple, handwritten note a year later. Thank you for the key. The Viridian Survivor Transparency Fund was my sanctuary and my purpose. With the money from my divorce settlement at a sum so vast it was abstract and the forced, glowing contributions from the new Ether Viridian entity, we tracked down the families of the Albany workers. We paid for educations, mortgages, therapy. We funded investigative journalists to dig into other closed cases. We became a persistent, nagging conscience for the industry. I didn't just want to punish the past. I wanted to arm people against the future. One afternoon, almost 2 years to the day after I'd walked into Marcus's office, I was in my fund's headquarters, reviewing a proposal for a whistleblower legal defense network. My assistant buzzed, "Ms. Sterling? Jasper Kane is here. He doesn't have an appointment." I hadn't spoken to him since the boardroom showdown. Our interactions were through lawyers and terse, professional emails. He'd honored the deal, but the alliance was, as predicted, thoroughly transactional. Send him in. He looked older, not in a bad way. The frantic, hungry energy of the new king was gone, replaced by the more settled authority of an emperor who'd consolidated his power. He wore a simple sweater and slacks. He held a bottle of very good Burgundy, a peace offering, he said, setting it on the edge of my desk, and a congratulations. I read the Times profile, from Invisible Wife to Inquisitor General. They love a good arc. They love a sellable narrative. I said, gesturing for him to sit. "What can I do for you, Jasper?" "Here to complain about the fund's latest probe into Ether subcontractors?" He smiled, a real one this time, tinged with wry amusement. "Actually, I'm here to make a donation, a personal one, to the Whistleblower Network, anonymously." Of course. I raised an eyebrow. Really? It's good business. A healthy ecosystem needs antibodies, prevents a total collapse. He studied me. The assessment still there, but now mixed with something like respect. "You've built something impressive here. It has teeth. I hear you're even being consulted on Capitol Hill about new regulatory frameworks. I've had good teachers in what not to do," I said, echoing my old words. He nodded. Indeed. He paused, swirling an imaginary glass in his hand. "He's up for parole in 15 years. You know that, right, Marcus?" A cold shiver, distant now, passed through me. "I know. Will you be there to oppose it?" "Every time," I said, without hesitation. He watched me for a long moment. "You know, when I first approached you, I thought I was recruiting a weapon, a precisely aimed, beautiful scalpel to cut out my competition." He leaned forward slightly. "I didn't realize I was handing the scalpel to a surgeon who would learn how to perform a full transplant. I told you I was a quick study. You did." He stood up, smoothing his sweater. "The donation will be wired by end of week. Keep up the good work. Lux, it keeps the rest of us honest, or at least more careful." He turned to leave, then stopped at the door. For what it's worth, he was a fool. The biggest mistake Marcus Thorne ever made wasn't the fraud or the murders. It was underestimating you. He gave a final, slight nod. "I won't make the same mistake." And then he was gone. I sat back in my chair, the silence of my sunlit office settling around me. I looked at the bottle of wine, then at the schematic for the Whistleblower Network on my screen. I thought of the 2 men in Albany, whose names I now knew by heart, Frank and Ben. I thought of their families, who could now afford to grieve without going bankrupt. I thought of the scared, invisible woman I had been, holding a tote bag outside a door, her whole world about to shatter. She was gone. In her place was someone else, someone who had been forged in betrayal, tempered in fury, and hardened in a war she never asked for. She had lost a husband, a friend, and her innocence, but she had gained something more valuable, herself, not as a secret, or a shadow, or a respite, as a force. My phone buzzed. Alex, on the secure line. The forensic audit on the new Ether Viridian carbon reports just flagged some major discrepancies. Looks like Jasper's Green division might be playing the same old games. You want me to dig? I looked out the window at the city, glittering and ruthless and alive. A new challenge, a new front in the endless war. A slow smile touched my lips. Send me everything you have, I said, my voice clear and sure in the quiet room. Let's see what we find. The game was never really over. But now, I knew how to play, and I was just getting started.